So, given all that, in terms of his view of authority, what kind of a student was he?
So there's a mythology around Einstein as a student. The myth is that he was a bad math student. Einstein failed math. No, he didn't. And we know this from two sources. One, we have his report cards and he gets top marks. We also have letters from his mother to his grandmother. And if your Jewish son is doing well in school, what are you doing? You're excelling, you're bragging, and we have her. So he actually did very well in math. Einstein always had the belief that he knew better. And so what he would do is he would work very hard in the things he cared about. In the things he didn't care about, he just didn't care. So he goes through school, getting decent grades. He ends up leaving the Catholic school was basically a primary school, and then he moves to high school or gymnasium, then a larger school. And we know he does well there as well, but he only actually completes up through his junior year of high school. He doesn't finish school. His father and uncle's company had gone bankrupt. They had basically bet the whole company on getting one contract that they didn't get. It went to a different company called Siemens, which they foresaw. So they realized that Siemens was going to become just a dominant player in German electronics. They thought, well, we're in the right business, we're in the wrong place. So they shuttered the factory and they moved to Italy. They left Einstein behind in Germany. They said, okay, finish high school, go to college, become an electrical engineer like your uncle. You could join the family business, it'll be fine. Well, Einstein is now, his family is gone. He has nothing but school, and he hated the German schools because they were based completely on rote memorization, which he thought just killed the intellect. And so he got the family doctor to write him a note saying he was suffering from nervous exhaustion. Please excuse him from the rest of high school. He leaves, he goes to Italy, he shows up on his family's doorstep unannounced. His family is mortified. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be finishing school. He says, I've got a plan. I'm going to take the entrance exam and go to the engineering university in Zurich. I don't need a diploma. I just have to pass the entrance exam. I'll study on my own. So he studies and he fails. But it was a strange exam. Half the exam, he was one of the top scorers of all of the people who took it. The other half, he completely flunked. It's as if he had never studied these subjects. And the reason is he hadn't. Einstein, in his preparation, saw fit to only study the things that interested him. And so when one of the heads of the school saw this really peculiar exam that was, both great and terrible, he tracked Einstein down and said, what happened? And Einstein explained his story. And he said the one thing Einstein did not want to hear: you need to go back and finish high school. He said, if you finish high school here in Switzerland, you don't even have to take the exam. A Swiss diploma will suffice. So he enrolled back in high school, but the Swiss schools were much different from Germany. In the Swiss schools, it was much more discussion oriented. His smart aleck comments were greeted with laughter instead of consternation. And so he rekindles his love of learning. He ends up at the university, and there he studies physics. But he thinks physics is what physicists are doing now. The classes were all much more classical. And he thought, that's useless. That's what physics used to be. I want what physics is. And so Einstein is a terrible student, not in that he didn't do well. He came out top of the class in the exams, but he would never go to class. The classes he had to go to, the lab classes, right? He would show up, take the lab instructions for the day, crumple it in a ball, and make a show of throwing it at the trash can. He would do the experiment his way. And so Einstein was not a good student in the sense that he didn't take education well. even though he was a good student in the sense that he did very well